that to the press?
I might have some trouble with that. A lot of people think you're as dangerous as the Joker.
He's psychotic.
Some people say the same thing about you.
What people?
Well, I mean, let's face it. You're not exactly normal, are you?
You are listening to Batman on Film, chapter by chapter, Batman 89. It continues, friends, and I'm excited for you guys to join us. My name is Justin Kowalski. I'm a Batman on Film Legacy member, and I'm joined today by, two people that haven't been on chapter by chapter in a minute. First, I'm going to bring on Mr. Garret Grev. He's been using Brand X all morning, guys. Garret, how are you doing?
Only my hairdresser knows for sure. Yeah, so who knows? I think I'm doing okay now. I'm really glad to be here. It's been a little while since I was on a podcast, and with this show in particular, I've really enjoyed listening to. But this segment, I was like, if I can get on this segment, I'm going to be hyped. So glad to be here with you.
Yeah, this is a hot seat. This was a very popular segment to get in on, and so I'm glad you've joined us today for the Big Dukaroo. All right, and then finally we have our editor-in-chief. We have the man from Texas himself. We have Mr. Bill Jett Ramey. Bill, welcome to your show.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You know, I do get y'all let me do the social hour, so I appreciate all that. But yeah. This is one I asked Justin. I said, kind of want to do this segment. I like for everybody else to get involved as much as possible, so I don't want to have to be on every show we have and all that. So, but I said this one I kind of like, and or this particular part of the movie. So yeah, I'm glad to be here and glad we're doing it, us three.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be fun. It's interesting. This is a real short segment too. So if you're following along with us, guys, you can hit 112 and 117. They were about 5-minute segment of film. The last episode we did a bigger chunk. We did about 15 minutes of footage. This movie's really segmented, really weird. So there's not really a great chapter. So we've been making it up as we go, which makes the most sense. And so this segment of the film is typically referred to as Descent into Mystery. And so there we go, guys. So let's jump on in to Batman 89, one of the greatest Batman films ever created. All right, you guys. So what takes place is this is right after Batman rescues Vicky from the Flugelheim. They have some altercations in the streets, and this segment of film starts right when Batman he takes care of some bad guys. Vicky's climbing down the fire escape, and he calls the Batmobile over. He says shields, and it comes over, and they get into the Batcave. I mean, to the Batmobile. So, what are your thoughts, Bill? Give us your thoughts and your impressions on this scene.
Well, we'll get into it. The music comes to mind first of all. From leaving from Gotham, getting to the Batcave, and secondly, to me, it is Keaton's eye acting. It's a master class. Especially, I mean, in the Batmobile and in the Batcave with Vicky. And it's probably like my main evidence I will turn to whenever I say I don't want lenses on the Batcowl, because I like the actor being able to use his eyes. And I think it goes back to Keaton in Batman 89. And this scene is just it's great. I love watching it because just what he does with his eyes in this is fantastic.
Yeah, you got some thoughts on Batman and his eyes?
Yeah, I think, well, one, I have sort of jokingly taken on the position of like, I really want lenses in the cowl.
Yes.
Now, I don't want lenses in the cowl in future movies all the time. Even, particularly, I don't think it makes a lot of sense in the Batman, the Pattinson Reeves Batman. But at times, I just kind of like the nod, right? I like the nod of the comic book. They can go up, come down, but I do think the acting through the movement of the eye is super important. And, related to this scene is just, there's a real dearth of dialogue. There's not a lot of written words that are showing up here. I'd be really interested to hear, what the Burton's direction looked like through this scene, because it's much more atmospheric than anything else. And when I think of like Burton, you guys know, and probably listeners to the show know my feelings on Batman Returns. That's too much Burton for me. Too much Burton. Hey, we gave Burton too much room and he went a little nuts. This to me is the right distillation of Burton, particularly if you think about like the Batmobile driving through these rows of trees and just the long spindly nature and like the way the brand, like it feels like Burton's aesthetic, but not taken to his sort of like stop motion cartoonish extreme. And I just feel like it fits so incredibly well with establishing, in Descent into Mystery, the name taken from the Elfman score here. Like it really does a nice job of building this intrigue and this mystery of saying like, where are we going? What are we doing? What is this relationship becoming? Why are we going where we're going? And from the lighting to the matte background as the Batmobile is driving through, it just all very much creates this like semi-foreboding sense to the scene, which is really, really powerful. I think it's one of the reasons, if not the reason, why this very short segment of the film gets as much conversation as it does. So it's not just the sort of the facial acting, but it's the art direction and the production aesthetic that really came together to make something special here.
Yeah, I think you nailed my thoughts exactly. I wrote that this is probably one of the most aesthetically accurate Batman scenes in film. I think it just hits. I think it just hits the tone. It's not. It just feels authentic to Batman. That I can't shake that scene. Bill, you talked about the eyes. You're 100% correct, because you wouldn't get that awesome. You get that side eye like Batman. I mean, he can't turn his neck.
So
but like let's forget he can't turn his neck. But he gives Vicky this like side eye, and it's so cool because it's so off-putting. Like imagine this chick. She has no idea who this guy is, right? And she's trying, she's looking. Oh man,
I wrote that down, and Garret brought up that great point about Burton's direction, especially in the Batmobile, that scene, because Vicky says a few things, where are we going? But most of it is Kim Basinger, she's looking, and she's kind of shifting her position in the Batmobile and trying to get a better look at him. And he gives that side eye, and then puts on the light so she
the light.
I love the light.
The light's
so
my favorite
great.
part. Like at some point Alfred's like, hey sir, you need a light.
Hey, if you ever have a passenger in this thing and they're trying to figure out who you really are, it'd be super helpful if you had a bright spotlight that could blind them as you're driving down the road. Like that's good thought, Alfred. Yeah, we'll do that.
So I was thinking, and I was even thinking while I was watching it again this morning, that I was like, I wonder what Burton is telling them.
Right.
While this, and then Garret brought it, and I didn't think about it like Garret did enough to write it down, but that did come through my mind. And then Garret brought it up, and I was like, yeah, that's really,
because they're not getting, I think about like the actors, right, getting ready for the scene and like learning my dialogue, what's my approach to the character. And I'm so curious, and I've got it saved someplace, the shooting script for 89. Like I would love to go back and look. I probably should have. A good podcast guest would have done this, to see like what is the instruction on the written page, because it feels like it has to be more of a conversation about feeling and where the different characters are coming from throughout the scene, and it carries on sort of right into the next scene, kind of depending on where we cut the conversation. But also in the previous scene, Justin, that you covered with Lauer on the last episode of Chapter by Chapter, Vicky and Bruce, or Batman, are sort of engaged in a little bit of this cat and mouse game, right?
Yeah.
Vicky is trying to understand who and what Batman is, and Batman is trying to keep her at a distance. Like there's obviously this pull, there's obviously the relationship between Bruce and Vicky, but there's also this component of how Batman wants to utilize Vicky with information to the press that even she calls out he could have done otherwise. But he's trying to keep her at this distance. And I think what's really smart, Justin, you called this out. We know, any fan of Batman and the Batman movies knows that Keaton couldn't move his neck and head in this costume. But they utilize it in a really smart way that plays into this, I'm going to keep you from seeing who I am or getting too close to me. So it's the side eye look. But you think about it, if he were to turn to look at somebody in the way we would turn to look at someone, now she's got a better up close shot of his face.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then later in the cave, he sort of has these big sweeping motions that keeps her at his backside so she can't be up close and see his face. And every time she moves a bit closer, he moves a bit further away. And Keaton is really good. And Burton is a super talented director to think about. And this is where I was saying, what's the direction? What's the character motivation? How does it play into where these characters are as people? Vicky's trying to get close and Bruce is trying to be distant. He's maintaining that aloof nature that we see as Bruce and this hyper secretive nature that we see as Batman. Like that's a core character thing. That's not just how you write out the script. It's coming from the place of who these characters are inside. It's genius.
Yeah. It's all direction. Brood. You brood.
Yeah, and be distant.
Yeah. It's cool because Vicky in this short part, she gets very like inquisitive. She's looking, and at some point, like again, like when he hits that light, it just becomes like, what's going on? Like almost. Yeah. No, I don't know if she's like scared, but she definitely like, what the? I'm being kidnapped essentially, right? So she goes through this wave of scared to like curious to like I give up. I don't what's next, you know. And
it's almost like at that last with the light, it's like she's like, okay, whatever, and just kind of falls to the slumps in a way and just okay, whatever.
And Batman here I don't like doing the comparison to like different films because this is what 89's is a different beast. But if you do compare it a little bit to when Bale has Katie Holmes in the Batmobile, he cares about her. Like he's checking on her the whole time, right? He's just like, hold on and like, but it's like
he's almost
he loves her.
He's Bruce. He's not Batman in that moment, even though he's in the cape and cowl.
Yeah.
Keaton
is like, So Keaton,
I love you guys because you think about these things the way I think about. Like I literally, as I was watching this and getting ready for it, I'm like, I don't know that I need to do it because this is 89, but like the comparison point to Begins is so on point. And again, it comes back to the nature of these characters and how Burton and the actors have worked together to present them. This Bruce is detached and aloof, and it's about, and the relationship with Vicky is about sort of recovering a human interaction that we are left to assume has been almost entirely devoid of since his parents were killed outside of Alfred, right?
Yeah.
So the story is sort of like him and Alfred kind of pushing him later to like reestablish human connection. In Begins, everything flows from that human connection. Yeah. Right? Like it's these childhood relationships that he's plugging back into. It's caring about people that he has cared about for years. Mm-hmm. So their motivation is totally different. The kind of the light where flashes her in the eyes and she's sort of like, oh, fine. This scared me to death as a kid when it looks like they're going to crash right into the side of the mountain and the door comes up and you see this expansive tunnel going in. Like that was when I was just like, this is cool. Like this is Batman. Like when I was a kid, all the way through me being a middle-aged man now, I'm just like, dude, that's so Batman. Batman would have a secret door. Yeah. And of course, as a little kid, I went back, because I was watching the 66 series like
Yeah.
it was, very serious,
Yes.
very thrilling
Yes.
comic book material.
Oh yeah.
But the sign, right, that flips out in front of the Batcave entrance, I was like, they're doing the thing. They're doing the
Yeah.
thing from the show that I watched. This is like the cool, edgy kind of, BA version of what they
Yeah.
did on that show. I just
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
I remember making I used to have these, I don't know if you remember these, but it was like a not building blocks, but it wasn't Lego, it was called constructs, right?
Oh yeah,
And it was like these
sure.
gray and blue things. And I
The
remember
Duplo of child plastic building blocks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or not Duplo,
And-
what's the Hydrox, Oreo cookie
Yeah,
Hydrox version?
but they were cool, man. Like, so I used it, and I made myself my Batman tunnel for my Toy Biz Batmobile, because I always thought that part was so cool, man.
So
You know?
cool.
So I'm just like, hopefully Batman has some type of sensor though. Like if that door doesn't come up, he's dead.
Yeah.
Like he hits a
Well,
hologram. It's all.
And one of the things I think about, and I can't even begin to count how many times I've watched this movie, but I think about it every single time. I saw this as a very little boy, like a kindergartner, with my mom in the theater. And I remember my mom like audibly gasping in the theater and clamped down on my forearm on the movie armchair rest next to her. Like she thought they were going to smash in. And they're like, Mom, did you really think we were going to get like an hour and 10 minutes into this movie and it was going to end with just Batman and Vicky splatted against a mountainside?
Yeah.
That's what you thought? Like she was very concerned for their safety.
Oh,
Vicky's
moms.
scream brings impact, and when she screams,
Yeah.
For sure.
brings a lot of the impact of that and the going through the door and whatnot.
Yeah,
Basinger's a good enough actress.
No, I
I
was
was gonna say-
sorry. Go, Garrett. Go.
No, Basinger's a good enough actress that she didn't end up going, in no disrespect to the Scream Queens that did fulfill all the slasher horror movies of the 80s and 90s. But like her scream is so good, it's amazing she never did like a horror movie, because like she's pretty piercing throughout this thing.
Yeah.
I like that part. It flows real nice again in that sequence. That like whatever, we're a minute in that whole thing. You go from her after she gets rejected with the flashlight, that frustration, and all of a sudden, boom! Like it just takes you. It's such a good ride, as you're on your way to the Batcave. So I love that. I love that whole sequence again and again. You kind of talked about it at the top, Bill. The score from Elfman right here it's so mysterious. It's like this scene is not going to be the scene it is without that song.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the way it punches. Oh, I mean, it's such a great piece. Like, everything just working together, man, from the cinematography to, the actors and, the music is perfect. So, all right. So we get into the Batcave. I love this scene. This right here. When I was a kid, I didn't, pay attention as much to like everything else, but now that you can pause things, I love the scope of the Batcave. We don't really see it all because we really just see Bruce sitting at his back at the computer a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But in this scene, you actually get to see there's a lot of like catwalks to get to where they're going. And there's other little instrumentations and stuff. I'm like, oh man, he's got a full-on Batcave here.
Yeah.
We don't get all of it, but it is kind of cool to see the expansiveness of it. So if you guys are watching the movie, give it a pause when they hit the wide shot, because it is really cool to see the full effect of the Keaton Batcave. Is really cool. So all right, so they pull in.
Not only that, Justin, but I think I wonder how much of this is a benefit we get of modern viewers in the medium that we have to watch the movie today. Because I tell you what, as a kid watching this on a VHS tape, the Burton Batcave was Batman's desk to me. It was his desk with the Batmobile on the side because you didn't have this definition, right? Like I saw this in the theater. I think I saw it. I think I got to go to it twice, maybe. I mean, once for sure, right? And that would have been the last time I saw it in high definition for decades. So like when I was a kid watching this on a VHS tape, Burton's Batcave kind of stunk. It was, there was a platform, there was a bridge, there was where the Batmobile was, and then there was the computer monitors. But when you watch it now in like 4K high definition, there's so much detail that I forgot existed for decades because I saw it when I was like, a little boy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, they really did do the set design. They really did produce this to look like a full environment and not just a poorly or a specifically lit soundstage. So I think we get some of that now because the technology's caught up to allow us to see it.
Hey, y'all, it's Bill Ramey, founder of Batman on Film. Let's take a quick pause in this podcast for these words from our sponsor.
I love Vicky as she gets out the Batmobile. She almost is a goner, man. Like he hits that light. Like Batman is kind of a jerk, man. He doesn't say watch out until the very last moment. You know, he hits those lights. You know, careful. But I love all the bats and he has that great line. You know, they're great survivors. But then for whatever reason, he's got like one in a cage. It's like that's it's on disciplinary action for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Too much guano on the Batmobile windshield.
Yeah.
So that one's in timeout. But it is that you're right. It's funny you say he's got that one great line because, you know, Keaton was really good and he's talked a lot about this and Burton's talked about it. How, you know, when Keaton approached the role, he's like, Batman should say less. You know, like these are just too much words. I'm not going to say all this. He should say less. And it's like the dialogue's really pretty limited, right? There's like none in the Batmobile. There's very little as they enter the cave. It's watch out, they're great survivors. And then he kind of has to talk a little bit more to explain, hey, but cracking the code on that toxin profile here. But everything's really understated from Batman. It's like, what's the least amount of words you could say to get by with it? And it just works really well. Because it not only just works well for Batman, but it keeps Vicky intrigued. She's not getting everything she wants. So she's driving towards something and Batman's like metering out how much he's going to give her. It creates a really good dynamic between the two.
She's descending into mystery is what
Yes.
All the way down.
Yes. And it's such he's just out of the Batmobile immediately. You know, and there's the few lines that we've already mentioned, you know, careful, great survivors. And then he's right up the stairs, right to the monitor, sits down, it comes up and it's right to the reason why he had her there, the business. You know, tell her basically, you know, she even asked, how did you figure this out? You know, and he talked, you know, it's not one thing, it's the combination, you know, lipstick and toothpaste
perfume
or whatever.
And hairspray.
Perfume, hairspray is
Under
toxic. Yeah,
dude, I love it.
It's toxic.
It's such a there's a little bit of a flex there with Batman, right? He just it's all laid out. Here we go.
Yeah.
And you know, and again, we get back to inquisitive Vicky. She keeps doing that, like, look, here, this whole scene, there's two moments in this scene which shows how like Burton just knows how to film and light this suit.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, does he?
Yes.
Ever?
Like Batman at the console. I mean, his face is really obscured, but the way the cowl is shaped, his eyes are completely out. Right?
Yes, they're black. Yeah.
That's how Batman needs to look in movies, like all the time. Batman should always be shrouded in mystery, I think. Especially
he's hidden in shadow.
Especially when like uninvolved people, like if Alfred's in the cave, no need for it. But if it's a visitor or if he's around people that, you know, aren't necessarily in his close to him, like Gordon, it's fine. Maybe in the early days, Gordon, he can be shrouded from Gordon, but you know, once they're pals and talking on the roof, he doesn't have to be like super like you know, shrouded out. But it was so perfect the way Burton made him. He's still a mystery, even though she's in it works. The whole get up works because she's even trying to see him and she's not going to figure it out the way everything.
And she's she's changing positions and angles.
Yeah.
Still try to get a better look at him. Yeah. And he just has that you know, that sharp. Y'all can see me, but that's just that, you know, those sharp turns away.
He even does the Batman Keaton move in the chair.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's funny. He just moves.
Yes.
And I think that's where they're utilizing, like, there's a suit limitation. We know how the suit was made. There's a limitation, but they found a way to work it into the body mannerisms and like, how does this character move? It's sharp and defensive. It's like broad kind of sweeping strokes to get the cape to twirl in some scenarios. But even to the shape of the cowl, like how well designed it was to sort of have those arched brow bones that are sit up high above the eyelets, so that when you have downward facing lighting, you cast those shadows down across the eyes and the whole face. I'm paused on a frame right here, and Justin's got to be right around where you were talking. The eyes are almost totally blacked out. The face is really in shadow, but you can make out some facial features. But there's just a speck of light like reflecting off Keaton's right eyeball. It looks so, it's just like a little piercing white light by his pupil. And it looks really creepy, man. Like it's just so perfect.
Yeah.
The part, I'm sorry, Justin, go ahead.
No, go Bill, go Bill.
I was just going to say real quick, it's like when he gets up out of the chair and turns around and is like this to the press. And then it's just that band of light right across his eyes where you can see, I mean, you can see the blue of his eyes and it's great. And then you get that close up, with more, he just more, what people, like that.
That was my next point, was that scene. That it reminds me of, if you all seen like Bela Lugosi Dracula, there's a scene where his eyes, the way they light his eyes, it's like they're glowing. And I always feel like this is an homage to that. I don't know if it is.
With Burton, it's got to be.
I'm
right.
Sure
like it has to.
There's
be
no way
that.
Burton wouldn't not.
Yeah, because it's sick. I love that scene. It's one of my favorite shots in the film because that's intentional. Like it wasn't, they blocked that out. They're like, okay, we want to highlight his eyes right there. Now he's just a silhouette with eyes. That's like, that doesn't work with lenses, guys. It just doesn't, man.
Nope.
And if you got Michael Keaton eyes, man, you got, there it is. We need to make a song called Michael Keaton Eyes, like Betty Davis eyes.
Yeah, Betty Davis eyes. Michael Keaton eyes.
Come on, Garrett. Get it.
I got it.
Dude, for 35 years of Batman 89, dude, make it happen. But
gotta make it happen.
Yeah, that's totally intentional. So what's cool about this whole scene is, like you said this earlier, Garrett, the cat and mouse between Batman and Vicky Vale. And he's being off-putting, and she finally pushes him, like when this whole like you're not exactly normal. That triggers the man because he flips around and then he starts engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows what he needs to do, but all of a sudden now he's like, and now he becomes a really imposing and menacing figure to her.
He does.
Like moving towards her. It's like he's like a wraith at this point. And yeah, man, she's now terrified. She's like, you didn't have to bring here,
Right,
Ooh,
exactly. So, where's the I could tell I was a theater kid at one point. Like a lot of times you talk about like in which direction is energy flowing in a scene, and it is all flowing from the beginning of this from Vicky to Batman, right? She's the one that's closing in space, and then he creates space. She closes the space, he creates the space. He's being evasive, she's pursuing him. But then when she pursues him to a point, right? And it's when it gets personal. And I think it gets to, the way Burton and Keaton saw their version of Bruce as having some of these deep insecurities that fuel who the character is. When she gets to "you're not exactly normal," like that kind of cuts, and then the dynamic changes where he's on the offensive, he's closing space and she's backing away, all the way until the scene cuts. And I think that energy helps create this sort of tension. I don't know if you want to like skip ahead, right? But it creates this tension where we know Batman, right? We're the audience. We know Batman. We know his motivations. But it does create this tension of, she's like, why'd you bring me here? You could have leaked this. And he's like, you do have something I want. And then the cape whips up in a way that's startling and tense for the viewer, when we know, right? We know Batman just didn't deck this lady or like attack her in any way. But the dynamic between the character creates a sense of tension that carries us through to the next scene, regardless of what we know logically Batman would do or not do in that scenario.
Yeah. That was very well explained, Garrett.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. Thank you, theater.
Well, gosh,
Yeah, that's and speaking of Dracula, like the cape like pop, that's a Dracula move right there.
Yeah.
Man.
Totally.
Like, and the bat's like screeching and stuff.
Yeah.
That was the next, because that's so stylistic, right? And we don't get a ton of those stylistic cuts. Like this is a very restrained Tim Burton. I think, and that's why,
Yeah.
like the trees and sort of the wildlife setting is reflective of things we would know. You can see some of that Burton DNA there, but it's not all Burton. But we don't have some of these artistic, stylistic elements in this movie. It plays it pretty straight. But I thought when I was watching this, I thought the same thing. I'm like, the cape goes up, the camera zooms in, the black of the cape becomes a normal black background, and then from that black background emerge these bats, right? It's got to be the most sort of artistic, impressionistic scene cut of the entire movie. I can't think of anywhere else where we have something similar.
Yeah.
I like the briefness, I guess, if that's a word, how brief this scene is, because there's so much in it with so little dialogue in such a short clip. But then you almost had forgot with the Batmobile traveling to the Batcave and then the interaction in the Batcave. You almost forget, because then, the next scene, which we'll get, I mean, that's another show, but she's at her apartment and she goes, "Oh, he took the film." And you completely forgot about her snapping the pictures of him that Justin and Lauer talked about in the previous scene, and you go, "Oh," because you did.
That's right.
It was, there was that little bit that Garret talked about. We know Batman didn't do anything sinister to her.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably,
Yeah.
But
yeah,
we didn't
he
know
probably just knocked her out. I mean, he probably gave
but
her a
I can
capsule.
remember thinking,
gas.
when I watched it, I was 23.
Yeah.
And I still was thinking, when he said, there is something you have that I want, and he did that. I'm thinking, what the hell, what does she have that he wants,
Easy there, Batman.
Yeah,
no
Batman.
means no.
And it's the film, and you had forgot about it. So
yes. And it took me years when I was a little kid to realize, oh yeah, Vicky, and maybe not years, probably when I was watching it on VHS, I got it for Christmas like the next year. No, I think it came out that year, and that was a big deal that it came out that quickly.
It came out in October, dude.
October, yeah.
Yeah, my uncle got it for me. I didn't get it until Christmas. And I lived out in the woods. We barely had TV channels, so I had no idea that it was released. But Vicky at that upward angle, as I don't remember who the goon is, that pulls up the mask and there's the flash. Like on that reel of film is Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne face underneath the mask. Like there's a reason why he needed to get that film, right? It wasn't just like it was a necessary thing. He had to get his hands on those pictures.
Yeah,
and nothing else, because he's a gentleman.
That's right. Here's what I remember from that whole scene, because I remember, like, I've told the story before, like I didn't get to see it until the VHS came out, so that's what happened with me. But I remember watching it, and I knew the story because I had all the trading cards, so I read it, and I just know Batman, like he rescues her, yada yada yada. But I remember my dad going, "Oh, he got the film."
Yeah, he darn right he did.
and I'm thinking. And I'm just thinking, like, where was the film? I just didn't know where the film was.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, like, if you go
the
backwards,
old
like,
underwire
drops
pocket.
the film, we're like, it's okay. We know where the film's at. Did you say the underwire?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. So
sorry, Vicky.
Sorry, Vicky.
Promise. I closed my eyes.
Oh man, yeah, it's such a great scene, and it does end with the phone call to Knox. And here's what I love Knox. Knox to me is one of those characters. You know how sometimes a character you create in like a film or a TV show, and they move him into the comics because he was well loved. I wish Knox would have made it, because one thing like I think the Batman comics need is, like, I like when they have, you have Gordon, you have Montoya, you have Bullock, right? You have Alfred. Like, another supporting character would be nice, because Batman doesn't have a lot of like press players, besides Vicky. So having Knox, I wish
that's
Knox
interesting.
made it
I wonder. That's interesting why Knox never made that transition, because
this issue with Wool or something. Yeah, and another reason why it'd be nice is Batman doesn't really have any doofy supporting characters. Like you think about Superman, you got Jimmy's kind of a doof, Steve Lombard's a doof. There's like a lot of doofy characters that enter his world. And Knox is just such an overly eager puppy dog. Just, What,
Yeah.
do you need me to come on over? You know, like
Yeah,
he's
yeah, that's what I was getting
just-
to. It's so
Yeah.
funny.
He's such a
so eager.
doof, you know, he's just so eager and desperate for attention and recognition. Can I have a grant? You know, like
Yeah.
he's like he is this puppy dog. And it would be there's really not any character like that in the Batman
Who's-
comics. It'd bring an
Joker
interesting
got it.
dynamic.
Who's that loss?
Yeah, who's that lost? Bad tie.
Yeah. It's like a headshot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, what it yeah. Anyways, I maybe there's still hope for Knox to make a return. I just think that would be better than whatever else they're doing in the comics right now.
He's not in any of those not very good Batman 89 comics, is he?
I don't remember, man. Let's not talk about those. We're talking about
Tough sled.
I've read through the first the first one. Okay.
The first one, yeah.
Yeah.
No echoes.
One through, right through that one, and I have the book,
Mhm.
but I haven't read it again. I don't know if
Yeah.
I will.
I don't know if he's in that.
And Echoes lost me after 2. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't think he's in
Is
it.
in it.
He just
I don't
showed
think-
up in the CW. That's the only thing he showed up in. Yeah, Was
They
that-
could get me
the
back
Crisis?
with some knocks. The crisis, yeah.
Yeah, he's all, come on, big guy. All right. Any
Good
closing
old
thoughts
Knox.
on these beautiful 5 minutes of film, guys?
I'll just say go ahead, Garrett.
No, I was gonna let you close it out because you get the last word. I was just gonna say I think it's so well crafted, but it doesn't feel overly produced. It doesn't feel like
Yeah.
they sat around and took the painter's tape out and put X's on the floor and said, okay, Vicky, you move here. Now, or Kim, you move here. Now, Michael, you're going to move here. And then Kim, you move back here. So then remember, Michael, you got to move back to this other. It all feels like very thought through and organic and coming from a place of what are we trying to convey in this scene? Who are these characters? What does it look like for them to come together in this scenario and in this persona for Bruce? And then just sort of let it flow from an organic standpoint. But it works out so well, right? It's designed, it's purposeful, but it doesn't feel overly formulaic. They didn't put it into an equation to spit out what it should look like and make it feel robotic. And just incredible atmosphere from the designs to the music to the acting direction. It really, for such a small section of the film, it has made a massive impression on people for years. And I think it comes down to those elements.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is the perfect, like, if you were like, hey, who's the Batman character? What's he all about? You show him this because you have your outsider who's Vicky, and she's learning with us as we're like, who's this? He's this lone crusader in his car. Batman, go into his like secret hideout, and then he's a detective. He's intimidating, and he's a little nutty, right? Like you get kind of like the synthesized version of like what drives Batman, and it all happens, and you see it all happen right here. Like, oh, dude, he's got a psychosis, like he's got some issues, but he wants to save us. He's a detective. He's got a cool car. He's got this really crazy hideout. Like all these things that we love about Batman, there's all in this scene, and
They're there.
And it's punctuated by amazing visuals and like probably one of the like besides the Batman the Elfman theme, like na 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 na, like this is the other like music that stands out to this film. So that was perfect. All right, Bill, take us home.
I have
That's right.
very little that's right. I have very little add other than it just Keaton in the eyes.
Yeah,
it just stand out to me, and there's no doubt in my mind that Robert Pattinson watched this because you can see him doing a lot of that eye work when he played Batman in the Batman. And I think one other thing I would add is that the audience, we know Batman is Bruce Wayne is Batman. Vicky doesn't know we have that privilege. And there's a little bit of like, it's okay. You've you've already hooked up with Bruce Wayne. This is the guy here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We know we're on the inside with Batman. So there's a little bit of that of like her trying to figure him out, and there's like, y'all kind of are dating, kind of, sort of, whatever you want to call it.
You have
Bruce
known
Wayne
one
way.
another.
Yeah. So there's that little element there too. Especially with you do have something else that I won't, with that. So, I like the audience is on the inside of this one, but we're looking at from the Batman point of view, and we get to see Vicky trying to figure it out. Well, we already know he's Batman, so we're cool. Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. All right. Well, we're gonna put a little pin in our chapter by chapter right now. Garrett, thank you for joining us today. Bill, thank you for opening up the doors for us to do this. Garrett, tell people.
Love these. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to. We're back on the saddle right now. We're back on
All
the
right.
saddle. We're getting them
35
done. All right.
years. It's like, yeah, close this thing out this calendar year.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
I know. Woo! All right, Garrett, take us home. Take us. Where are you at? What are you doing? Tell us people how to find you.
Oh gosh, you can easiest way to interact with me is over on, I guess it's just X now, but I still say Twitter. Handle over there is at Garret Wato. That's GarretWato. Talk a lot of Batman over there, but you'll get a whole bunch of other stuff because Lord knows I don't have enough various interests. Hopefully you like NFL football if you're going to follow me, because you're going to get plenty of that, especially as we gear up to the upcoming season. You little Superman talk. There's a He-Man movie in the works, allegedly, again. So a little Masters of the Universe chat and I don't know, various music conversations. If you like hearing me talk and you want to hear me talk about fantasy football, that'd be great. I got a show looking at fantasy football along with a buddy of mine, Matt Renshaw. We're called Dynasty Dads. That's at Dynasty Dads, all one word. But hit me up. I'm a chatty guy. I'd love to chat with you.
Awesome. Bill.
Batman on Film. That's it. Batman-on-film.com. That's all I got.
There you guys go. You can find me on X, Justin M. Kowalski. There you go. And then you'll probably see me next on Chapter by Chapter. That's where I'll be, unless Pete gets me on something.
Well, we're going. Here shortly, we're going to do a social hour. Maybe.
Yeah, we're going to do a social
next
hour
week.
soon.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll talk about it. So
yeah, we'll see. Me and Bill will be on a social hour, and we're gonna have a big do-guru. The big do-guru. I just love that term. The big.
He's at home washing his tights.
We're not there yet, Garrett.
Oh man,
no skipping ahead.
I've got a few scenes that I'm going to bug you to get on, so maybe listeners can catch me on this show in the future too.
The door's open, man. The door's open. So, all right, you can do all that. Follow everybody. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys are subscribing and checking out all the shows, because I'll tell you, man, one of my favorite things to do is when I'm doing chores, my BOF feed carries me through the day mostly, man. There's a lot of good shows
100%.
that come on. So you'll get the social hour, you'll get like a regular standard show, you'll get an animation show, you'll get one of these, and so
we just talked about an episode from the Batman 2004. That's when Red Hulk was the villain on that episode.
Yeah, that was definitely a choice right there. They were trying to like play with the color palette. They're like, we need to throw something in there. So yeah. Woo-wee. All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Batman on Film. Authoritative, definitive.
The Dadgum original.
Dadgum original.
All right.
There you go.
I can't say that, but I'll also say the original. Like,
Okay.
I'm not further. I need to go a little more east for me to be able to say Dadgum. I just tell him Pete. Do it.
All right,
guys. Announcer Rachel will take us out.
You have been listening to Batman on Film Chapter by Chapter, a BatmanOnFilm.com podcast revisiting the cinematic adventures of the Dark Knight, scene by scene, chapter by chapter. Follow Jett on Twitter at Batman on Film. For BOF news only, follow at the Batman on Film on Twitter. To become a BOF patron, go to patreon.com/Batman on Film. To advertise on BOF, visit advertisecast.com/Batman on Film. For Jett and Team BOF, I'm announcer Rachel. Authoritative, definitive, the original. Batman on Film, established in 1998.